Okay.
Okay, once again, I'm back with my good buddy John Byron Haynie, and this is part 2 of our podcast. So one of the things that I think probably people would be interested in knowing is kind of the momentum that you use to go from one show to the next, how you handle the travel and all of that kind of thing, because as much performing as you're doing, pal, this is grueling. I mean, it's almost like being a truck driver, a mover, and an entertainer all in one show.
Well, it is, Riley. I played this past weekend. I played in Hallettsville, Texas, which is down below I-10, kind of down between Seguin and Houston.
Yeah.
And that was Saturday. And then Monday night I was in Oklahoma City. I was and so a lot of traveling. Yeah. And the price of fuel does eat into your pay, that's for sure. But always try to determine how far it is where I'm traveling to determine the pricing.
Talk a little bit about that, because that's something you and I both have to deal with. We talk about traveling. I was in Memphis, Tennessee for a show the weekend before Thanksgiving, and played Kansas City, Oklahoma, played Arkansas and Louisiana, of course, all over Texas. But when you do these shows, what are some of the factors that you take in? For example, do you often spend the night at an engagement, or do you do any of that kind of thing?
Well, if it's far enough where I will spend the night, I'll say, well, you have to either spring for a hotel room, or but this price includes performance time, drive time, fuel, and hotel.
Yeah.
Most places I play, of course, I drive back. I played in Oklahoma City the night. Well, part of the price was included a hotel room. That was part of the price. And so, absolutely.
And that's about a 4-hour drive for you?
Yeah, about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't do this for free. That's for sure. And I've had to pay the expenses as well, but I want to put money in my pocket.
Absolutely.
We did it for profit, for sure.
Well, absolutely.
But I have other bills to pay than just paying for gas to go to a gig.
Sure, absolutely. And being a working professional musician means that you charge a fair market value for what it is that you do.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned travel and stuff like that. I don't know. I often take my wife with me on the longer gigs just because I feel it's a little bit better if I were to nod off at the wheel, she could slap me or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you do most of your travel alone, or do you have a companion?
Most of the time I travel alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not married. I was married once, but I'm not married now. But most of the travel alone. Yeah. I like to drive. Huh?
Wonderful. I was going to ask. You have to really kind of like that a little bit, right?
Yeah. It's nice. But I like to drive, and I love to travel. I really like that. I like drive. I've got a real nice vehicle I can travel in, and but that's part of it. Yeah, and it does get tiring. I mean, the roads, especially after a gig, and you got a long drive ahead of you. If you don't stay, and it's like, wow, man, the gig's over. The adrenaline levels back down, and now I got to drive home. But that's just part of it.
Well, let's talk about that for a little bit. Do you have any favorite late night places to grab a bite to eat? Do you have any kind of music or whatever you listen to? Listen to podcasts or something on the way home? What do you do?
Well, mostly I listen on the way after a gig. I listen to maybe news talk or podcast.
Okay.
Listen to find sports, or I'll put on some road music. But yeah, especially after a gig, I like to listen to news talk. It helps just clear my ears, and not so much music.
I understand that completely, because for those of us that have been doing this a while, our ears aren't the best. I mentioned in an earlier podcast. I had my ears tested about 3 months ago, and I've got a major dip between 3,000 and 6,000 cycles. I'm not happy about that.
I think I've got one too. I need to have my ears tested.
Well, it's interesting. I went to a lady in Plano who did that, and it's kind of like my ear is a permanent smiley face EQ scoop.
Oh, gosh. I drink a lot of coffee too. It keeps me up. As far as favorite places to eat, golly, I love In-N-Out Burger or Whataburger. I shouldn't eat that junk, I know, late at night, but sometimes you get hungry, you're just hungry.
Well, yeah, absolutely. In particular,
and I drink a lot of water. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's, while we're talking about that, I've had this conversation with a lot of people over the years, and I think those of us that continue to have a high water intake can do what we do for longer periods of time. Here's a question for you. What's the longest gig you played, like start to finish?
Oh my gosh. I did 6 hours one time. I think for a private party, it's been years ago, where they had me start like 3 in the afternoon and play till about 9 or 10 at night. Of course, I took breaks.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But you know as well as I do. I mean, I'm not a human jukebox, and the voice can only last so long. And
That really is
you
true.
have to be careful, because you can hurt your vocal cords if you do. But so I try to take breaks, and of course there's always a break. But sometimes I have played 2 hours straight without a break. That's about the maximum.
Well, the reason I ask these questions is that one of the things, candidly, that I do to prolong long shows is that I'll use the tracks, and you've heard me play, and I generally do tracks that I've made here at the house.
Yes.
So that I can spell myself or do an instrumental thing if my voice gets tired. And a 6-hour gig is really long.
That's a long gig. It's even 4-hour gigs are long, and I have several 4-hour gigs I play right now. I play several 4-hour gigs.
Yeah.
But they realize that you need to take a break.
So let's talk about your King Biscuit talent, which is your voice. Do you do any warm-ups or any exercise or anything specifically to be able to sing for as long as you do?
I do. When I'm going to a gig, I put on some songs on the radio and sing along with them a little bit to get warmed up. And usually right before I play, I may do the that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you need to warm up your voice. You just can't go right in there cold. You got to get the vocal cords.
Yes. So here's another question, and this is something I ran into last week. Let's talk about 2-a-days or 3-a-days. Have you ever done 2 shows in a day, or even 3 shows in a day?
Oh, absolutely. I've got one coming up July the 1st. So I've got to play a winery over near Cedar Creek Lake from noon to 3. And then that night I'm in Frisco at a place called DD's downtown, playing from 7 to 10. That's coming up July the 1st. But I do a lot of 2 shows. I have to look on my calendar to see what I have. I sure do, yeah.
So how do you pace yourself?
Drink a lot of coffee. Well, you just have to realize, man, I've got 2 shows coming up today. I got 2 shows tomorrow, whatever like that. You have to just kind of mentally prepare for that. I'm trying not to do as many now as I used to, because I'm getting older, and it can be grueling.
Yeah.
But I have done that, and especially when you play the first show, you set up your equipment, you play, you take down your equipment, load it in your vehicle, and you go to the next gig. Set it up, play, tear it down again.
Yeah. So
and, I don't make enough money to have my own roadie.
Well, let's talk about that. Are hand trucks and/or chiropractors a part of your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a great cart. It's a rock and roller. It's made by a company called Rock. It's called a Rock and Roller, and it's my cart. It's my best friend. And I have a great chiropractor too here in Corsica.
Because again, I think folks by now, if you're doing any solo shows, and I hope that most of you that are listening to this are either thinking about it or have already begun a solo career. Many of you may be as far along as Byron and I are further. But I think it's important that you understand that you're doing several things. You have to be a business person. You have to be a performer. You have to be a salesperson. You have to be a bit of a moving company. You have to be a truck driver or a car driver. And we wear all these different hats in order to be able to be standing or seated in front of people, playing for somebody that thinks enough of what we do to pay us.
Yes.
And so what are any of those areas that when you became a solo performer, you thought, boy, I wish I'd done more of this in school? For me, it was business. I wish I'd done more business classes.
Yeah, I wish I'd have finished college and have a degree. I might not be singing as much, but no, I wouldn't trade anything for it. And people say, well, what would you do different? And I said, well, I wouldn't do anything different. I just maybe speed up the process a little bit. But you really have to enjoy doing what you're doing. Like I say, you are a truck driver, and you have to be a politician. You have to do that too. You have to mingle with the crowd and learn how to talk to people, be nice to people, You know, you can't be a prima donna, even though there are. Oh, I lost you again. In this business, you have to be nice to people, and of course, that's in any business. You have to do that too. But being a performer, you have to give it all you got on every show. Give them 100, sometimes 110%. You know, whether you feel like it or not, you have to do that because it reflects. The crowd knows. I played a place Sunday in McKinney. I had a place called the Sticks Ice House, and the guy came up and gave me a tip. He said, Byron, he said, I'm really enjoying your show. You can tell that you have a lot of passion with what you're doing. It reflects on your stage. You have a lot of stage presence. It reflects in the way you talk to the crowd, the way you sing. He said, you are really a professional. I'm really enjoying this. And that was so nice for that guy to say to me.
One of the good things that does happen is that, you know, being a solo performer, you're it. And you can almost tell immediately, am I doing what is required? Am I doing it correctly? Are people like it? In other words, you get immediate, instantaneous feedback. I've talked to people that have been in the television biz, and the one thing about that is that they'll cut a television program, and they don't know until later on is it a hit or not. You know, and you can have good actors, a good crew, good scripts, and everything, and for whatever reason it doesn't resonate with people, you've spent millions of dollars for nothing. And for what we were able to do, you go out there and you can start playing and singing, and you know almost instantly, is what I do resonate with other people or not?
Yeah.
And
oh, exactly. You're exactly right. You know right then when you're performing solo live like that, you know right then that people are going to take to you or not. You know. Now I've had people, you know, say, I don't really like country music, so I'm not gonna stay here and listen. I'll say, well, that's fine with me, you know. But I've had people say, you know, I really don't like country music, but what you do well, and that flatters me too. You know?
One of the great things that happens after you've been doing it a while, again, is that you get to a point where you can kind of tell, you know, okay, I'm going to need to play this for this group or that for that group. And you mentioned about people and personalities. Do you feel like you kind of already have a master's in personal relations and interpersonal relations?
Well, that's something you had. If you don't, you develop it real quick. My father, he was just a master at talking to people, and he never knew a stranger. In other words, but my mom was kind of she was the shy one, kind of the wallflower, and I was more like my mom for a long, long time. But playing music, especially the solo work, has gotten me out of that little shell, and now I don't have a problem talking to people, going up to somebody and talking to them. You know, especially during the show or after, you know, on a break or something. You have to love what you're doing. You have to really love it, and I do love it. I love performing for people. I love playing for people, and it's just so nice. And of course, I write some songs. I'm not a prolific songwriter, and I do mostly cover tunes, but I'm constantly thanking the people who wrote the songs that I'm able to sing. You know, whether it's John Denver's music or George Strait's music, whoever, I like to know who wrote the songs, and I like to tell stories. Well, this song was written by so-and-so in the year whatever. And this is I like to tell stories when I play. So I give credit to songwriters too.
I think that's really important. Yancey Stevens and I talked about a buddy of his that got a quarter of the credit for Amarillo by Morning, which is a song you do a bunch. I do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's really interesting. And Yancey was very much about encouraging performers to write. So I guess that would be kind of the final area that I'd like to talk about today. And that is just what advice would you have for somebody that's beginning a solo performing career? Maybe they're coming out of a band environment, or, you know, they've been taking some singing lessons and they feel now, you know, I get out there and play and accompany myself. What would you suggest? What would I
just sing for whoever is willing to listen to you. Go out and like I said, I perform at a lot of nursing homes and retirement communities, and they're starved for entertainment. They love entertainment. I start there if you want to get a gig playing. You know, just call the manager or the activities director of some of these places. You can get in that way. Or there's a lot of places that have live music. But like I said, we talked about the tools. Make a video, you know, with your phone or get it professionally done and get you a video either through a podcast or YouTube, and get it. Start your web page, get it online. Let people see you that way too. And that's the way to do it. Just sing for whoever you can for, in front of. Just get out and just do it. So.
And I think one of the underlying things which we haven't talked much about is that you do a lot of marketing. You're constantly talking to people in order to be busy. I remember an interview with a guitarist and a guitar book writer and a great musician named Jimmy Stewart. He used to do a column in Guitar Player back in the late 1970s. Okay. And he said that he practiced guitar for 2 hours a day. Mm-hmm. He spent the other 6 hours looking for work so that tomorrow he could practice 2 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that was phenomenal. How much practice did you do either growing up or even now as a musician, either learning material, maintaining material, getting better at material? How much, what kinds of things did you practice?
Oh, I just used to get hang on a second. I started playing guitar when I was about 14, and I used to just stay in my room as much as I could, just playing guitar, learning chords, learning songs. I still practice today. I'm constantly learning new material. It may be old material, but it's new to me. You never quit practicing, and even sometimes when you do an actual show, it can be, wow, I need to practice this. So maybe practicing during the show, but now you don't. But you're constantly having to learn. You're constantly having to practice. Who was it, Julie Andrews, that said, I can't remember the exact quote. She said, amateurs practice till they get it right, and professionals practice till they can't do it wrong. And so just constantly practice.
I think that's wonderful advice. All righty. Well, Byron, thanks for everything today. This has been a great experience.
Well, thank you, Riley. I say I'm not much of an interviewer. I don't, but I made it through, and thank you so much. You were very professional, and I enjoy your work too. And I think you got a good thing going on here.
Well, this is a lot of fun, and that's why I do it, as we talked about earlier, because both of us have been doing this for long enough that I think it's important that we share what we've learned. And so, again, thanks and congratulations. You've been listening to the Band of One podcast. I'm Riley Wilson, and thanks for joining us, and my special guest, John Byron Haynie, this week. Oh, once again, your webpage is?
It's jbhcountry.com.
jbhcountry.com. You can
like John Byron Haynie, but it's jbhcountry.com.
jbhcountry.com. So check out Byron's webpage, and thanks for checking out the Band One podcast. I'm Ronnie Wilson. We'll do this again in the near future. If you have questions or comments about the podcast, you can get in touch with us through our podcast page, or you can contact me directly through my webpage, which is guitarmadesimple.com. See you next time.
Thanks, Ronnie.